All right, everybody. Good late morning and early afternoon. My name is Corinne Colson. I'm the Manager of Strategic Communications and Marketing at Penn State New Kensington. I'm glad you can join us. This is session 2, actually, of our new Setting a Future Ready Foundation video series for our Nextovation initiative, which we'll learn a little bit more about. Today's topic is ROI, or Return on Investment of Industry 4.0. And if you joined us for our first session a couple weeks ago, you learned a little bit more about what Industry 4.0 is. If you weren't able to make it or watch the recording yet, that's okay, because we're going to briefly discuss and recap Industry 4.0 for us. So we're actually going to get started. The first thing that we are going to do is go over some ground rules. And so all of you may have noticed that your microphones are muted and your video is turned off for participants. That is so we can get through the presentation and everything, but that doesn't mean that you can't engage with us. We are recording this session, so just make a note of that so you can always go back and watch it. You'll be sent this recording for attending today. And for those who can't make it today, they'll be able to watch that. For those able to join us live, so you're in our Zoom room right now, we're going to be using the Q&A feature. So if you have some questions throughout, myself as well as Alyssa, who is our operations manager at the corner and with Nextovation, is also monitoring that. So to do a Q&A, all you need to do is you'll see that little Q&A symbol at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please ask one question at a time. So any questions that you may have, we'll monitor that and take some Q&A breaks throughout today's presentation so that our facilitator can answer those questions. We're also going to have some interactive polls. So get ready to do some clicking with your mouse or on your phone to participate in those, and we'll have some discussions surrounding the answers that you choose. So as we move forward, and although I'm going to let him introduce himself, I do want to mention our presenter today, and I'm actually going to open the floor to Steve Leonard, who works with us in Nextovation, and he's going to be your presenter today. So take it away, Steve.
Well, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you're having a good Tuesday morning. And I thank you for being able to come on board and listen a little bit more about Industry 4.0 and how it may have an impact on your business, not only for manufacturing, but for non-manufacturing as well. I'm not going to go through and kind of give you a detailed background. You can see on the slide, I do have a lot of experience working in the manufacturing industry, over 30 years of that, in new product development and materials. But I've been fortunate to be able to work with Penn State New Kensington on being the operations and program manager for Nextovation, which is the region's revitalization initiative led by Penn State New Kensington. So I'm very excited about that. What I'd like to do is just give you a brief overview about what we're going to cover in this presentation. So we're going to be covering how organizations can identify meaningful returns on investment when applying aspects of Industry 4.0, talk a little bit about why they would want to do this. We'll share some examples and scenarios where this has been documented and how Nextovation can possibly help you in your Industry 4.0 journey, and some steps on how you can get started down this path. And we'd be more than happy to help you out as you work down this pathway. So without further ado, let's move along. So in our first webinar 2 weeks ago, we covered the introduction to Industry 4.0 that was given by Chancellor Kevin Snyder from Penn State New Kensington. And he talked about the evolution of the various growths and spurts in industry. Industry 1.0, which was the turn of the 18th century into the 19th century, mechanization, steam power, weaving all the way through to Industry 2.0, which is mass production and the assembly line, Ford automobiles, Ford inventing that. Industry 3.0, which was automation, computers and electronics, that was in the 1960s. All the way to now what we have is called Industry 4.0, and that's the cyber physical systems that we're probably getting slowly familiar with, or you may be more familiar with it. Internet of Things, how we are now communicating digitally across the board, and especially now that we're in COVID, how we're able to communicate and learning how to communicate virtually, which is really important. So that was what we covered 2 weeks ago, and that led us to Industry 4.0. And that led us to these sort of kind of topic areas, or what we call technology areas. So Industry 4.0 consists of the following technology areas. They are systems integration at the top, cloud and edge computing, big data analytics, automation, robotics, additive manufacturing, Internet of Things, AI, machine learning, augmented virtual reality, simulation, digital twin, cybersecurity, and advanced materials. So organizations are applying a number of these technologies areas in their business and operations really to enhance their productivity and customer service, operational efficiency, safety, quality, and market competitiveness. Now, each one of these, as well as a combination of these several technologies, can provide a compelling return on investment, depending on what it is that you and your organization want to achieve. So the number one question that most businesses have been asking is, where do we start? I'd like to challenge everyone and say, maybe the question is not so much where, but it's more of a why. Why would we want to do this? Many companies that apply Industry 4.0 to their business approach it from a technology focus and get caught up in the hype of the latest technology. It's easy to sort of kind of get swallowed into, wow, this is the latest technology in AI, machine learning, and we need this, or the latest technology in big data analytics. Companies that apply them in this ad hoc fashion are often done in separate functional groups in your organization. And this significantly hinders the full impact of the benefits that could be afforded by Industry 4.0 technologies. And as a result, in failed implementation and sunk investment, disillusionment and abandonment can result. And corporate investors can lose heart and have less confidence in the organization that applied these. So instead, companies need to take what is called a value and performance-driven approach first across the enterprise or your organization. And the data clearly shows that companies that follow this approach have a stronger return on investment and a much more competitive approach to how they conduct their business. So when you approach the implementation of Industry 4.0 in your manufacturing business, and we're going to talk about manufacturing business based first, and then I'll talk about non-manufacturing, you really want to focus on value and performance. A report published by KPMG's consulting services group titled "A Reality Check for Today's C-Suite on Industry 4.0" outlines a competitive assessment on how best to implement Industry 4.0 technologies. Successful organizations focus on value and performance and establish comprehensive systems to measure them. A common measurement of performance is called a KPI, or what we call a key performance indicator. Organizations focus on cost and quality and service and agility being the main performance indicators that they want to achieve as they strive to grow and be competitive and attain their business goals. Cost refers to the operational and capital and inventory costs that you might be familiar with the objective of keeping it to a minimum. Quality refers to operational and finished product quality, as well as quality of service. So it's not just products, it can be services as well. And this would include productivity, efficiency, and availability of products or services. And the objective is to maximize that. Service refers to customer service delivered, as well as the internal service that you give within your organization. Maintenance and updates are also a part of this, and the objective is to maximize that. And then finally, agility refers to the ability of the organization to react to changes and issues, both internally and externally. The emphasis is on speed and quick decision-making, and the objective is to maximize it. And as we found out with the onset of COVID-19 just 5 months ago, everyone has had to pivot and be really agile to be able to address this new reality that we're living in. So these indicators are influenced by value drivers that circle the outside of that triangle, all right? Those are ones that help us understand and learn how we can apply these different Industry 4.0 technologies in a way that can help us improve on any one of those 8 value drivers. So as I go through this, I'm going to share some examples that were based on a review of case studies and statistical analysis from this KPMG report. So for service and after sales, that includes predictive maintenance, remote maintenance, and virtually and guided self-service. We have seen, or KPMG has seen, a 10 to 40% reduction in maintenance cost through the application of predictive maintenance and remote maintenance. Likewise, time to market, which includes customer co-creation or open innovation, concurrent engineering, rapid experimentation and simulation, a 20 to 50% reduction in time to market has been realized. Subsequently, forecast supply and demand matching, forecast accuracy has increased by 85%. And that has allowed organizations to use data-driven demand prediction and data-driven design to identify the value of increasing their forecasting accuracy on what maybe customers are looking for and what customers are demanding. Cost for quality is reduced by 10 to 20%. That includes statistical and advanced process control, inspection processes, and digital quality management. And that has been reduced, as I said, by 10 to 20%. Productivity increases, for instance, on resources and processes. That includes smart energy consumption, intelligent lots, and real-time yield optimization. And those have increased by 3 to 5%. Asset utilization. That includes routing flexibility or machine flexibility, adjusting to new demands by customers, and having the assets be able to achieve those. And remote monitoring and control, again, predictive maintenance, and utilizing aspects of augmented reality to create what is called a maintenance, repair, and operating supply. And that has achieved a 30 to 50% reduction of total downtime based on the applications of these Industry 4.0 tools. Labor has increased by 45 to 55%, and that includes development and cultivating talent. Human-robot collaboration. We're all seeing robots being applied within the manufacturing industry when it comes to building parts that could be more quality-oriented and better assembled. And you need that human-robot collaboration. Remote monitoring and control is very important. And digital performance management and automation of work is really important in being able to drive these improvements in how our labor force is increasing its capability and talent. And then finally, cost of inventory. Cost of inventory holdings can decrease by 5%, 3 to 5%, by utilizing things like in situ 3D printing, or what we call additive manufacturing, real-time supply chain optimization, and batch size. In other words, trying to keep your batch sizes small and trying to make sure that you're not creating an overabundance of products. And those inventories can benefit from data analytics on purchasing behavior. So those are very important aspects of how these various value drivers and some of the examples of what kind of performance improvements you can see can happen within Industry 4.0 for the manufacturing-based business. Now, for non-manufacturing-based businesses, it really doesn't change. The center triangle is still very important. Non-manufacturing uses these drivers to play an equally important role. So service, cost, quality, and agility is very important and is universal across all organizations, from manufacturing to healthcare to education, retail, legal, and financial services. So those are things to keep in mind. The outside value drivers still are relatable to what you do in non-manufacturing. So for instance, in service and after sales, you can see improved customer service and quicker follow-up, utilizing some of the digital-based tools, whether it's through the kind of virtual remote collaboration tools like Zoom or some of the other digital-based tools for service providers, whether they're in the retail or they're in follow-up or finance, to be able to kind of contact their customers and be able to provide them the kind of follow-up service they're looking for. In time to market, you can see a reduction in time to market for digital product launches. So for example, applications like Power BI are very useful in helping to manage through product management or project management the aspects of how you're managing and developing either your products or your services. So that could be very impactful for a non-manufacturing business. Let's say you're in the finance industry, or let's say you're looking at trying to improve upon your IT aspects within your organization or healthcare. Predicting demand, just-in-time delivery, so there's no shortage. Data analytics for purchasing can predict the desired choices of customers as they go through their buying behavior. And this can be seen in how demand can be easily met through these kind of data collections from customer purchasing habits in the retail industry. So for example, Wayfair sells a whole number of different pieces of furniture on the web, and you look at that and say, how can they inventory all this? Well, they've determined which ones seem to be popular and which ones don't. And they're able to deliver on those products in a relatively quick time, utilizing the data analytics associated with that. Same thing with American Eagle, and same thing with Groove Rings, which is the new silicone wedding band ring that seems to be taking the market by storm. So likewise, cost for quality is reduced, and then you can get improved outcomes by focusing on the quality aspects. Let's say through the medical service. Let's say you use digital or digitized patient records, as well as using tracking tags like an RFID or QR code for tracking the patient's medical history, so that you don't have mistakes that are made in the medical community, as well as utilizing it for sterilizing instruments or key products. They can track exactly which ones have been sterilized properly, so everything is very well organized and controlled. For resource and processes, you can have improved energy use and office equipment and productivity. So for example, the Xerox Smart Operating System for copiers, it's a little bit old, but it's designed to shut down when it's not in use, so it can conserve energy. And then you come into the latest things like the Nest thermostat or environmental monitoring systems. They monitor the environmental preferences as a user that you may have when you're trying to kind of maintain your home or even your office. So those are very good examples of how they can manage things through improved energy use and office equipment productivity. Asset utilization. You have reduction of total downtime for office equipment and maybe software issues, because everything can be done online through the web or through the cloud. And machines are actually smart. They can notify services for repair based on the equipment health monitoring algorithms they have within it. So those are things that are being leveraged through this Industry 4.0 universe. And for labor, increased staff productivity, digital know-how, talent development, and retention. So for education, examples like advancements in Canvas or in CampusWire, which is another service, and others can help optimize the student and the educator interaction virtually via Q&As online or chats for discussions online, as well as setting up office hours and active learning. Those are very important things, can really help us, especially within COVID, as we're starting to see a lot of what we call hybrid teaching. There might be some face-to-face teaching followed by online teaching. And then finally, decreased inventory and holding and improved cost management in that particular area. So you can see, for example, Amazon and other online retailers using data analytics to determine real-time the demands and purchasing demands from the online ordering. And this gives them an idea of how they can manage their inventory accordingly. So these are just a few of the examples. We could go on and on. I don't wish to do that, but it gives you an idea of what this can do from a non-manufacturing-based business system. So I'm going to turn it over to Corinne.
All right, everybody, get your clicking fingers ready for our first interactive poll question. So now that you learned from Steve a little bit about those value benefits, we're going to launch the first poll. And so you should see a poll appear, a window appear on your screens. So take a moment to read those. And this is the question: based on what you know about you or your organization, what 2 value benefits would you focus on first? So we'll give it a minute or so to allow people to vote before we shut off the polling there, and then we'll have a discussion about that. For those of you who may be out there watching the recording of this, although you can't participate in the live polling, think about these questions and think about the different value benefits that Steve just went over and what you would choose on that wheel. So we're getting answers rapidly coming in. We'll give about another 15 seconds before we close it out. Okay. So we're going to share these results so everybody can see what the results are and what everybody chose. So Steve, you can take a look at that.
Sure. It looks like labor, increased technical productivity and talent is at 57%. That's the number one based on the respondents to the poll, which is not surprising. We've been talking to a lot of various companies, both industry and manufacturing as well as non-manufacturing, and we keep hearing the same thing about having the need for more what we would call relevant talent in this new digital age. The other one is resource processes, increased enterprise productivity. That's a very much a common one. I'm not surprised with that. That is very important, especially when you're trying to maximize your return on investment. And a few of these others, we've got asset utilization, decreasing equipment downtime. That's very important. I've personally experienced when I worked at Arconic or Alcoa, one of our forging presses was down for 4 or 5 days. You would think, oh, wow, that's not a big deal, but I'm sure it hurt. I think we lost over $1.5 million in those 4 days because we weren't producing wheels. So that's an important one. Nothing for inventories, but a few for quality, supply and demand, forecasting, and then time to market, decreasing time to market. So these are actually excellent answers.
All right, so I stopped sharing, and I want to just remind everybody, use that Q&A feature if you think of a question along the way. Right now, we don't have any coming in, but feel free to type questions as you think of them, and we'll take these breaks throughout Steve's presentation. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I want to give you some specific examples where Industry 4.0 is providing what we would call significant return on investment. Now, these are based on a manufacturing approach, and I'll share some that are non-manufacturing. And I broke it down into assets, workforce, and processes. So real quick, when you look at a German automotive company, which they didn't say what it was based on the source, which came from PTC Corporation, they use predictive real-time Internet of Things to reduce their maintenance downtime by a significant amount. So they were able to save more than $50,000 per minute in the assembly of an automotive vehicle. That's pretty enormous. So that's an amazing aspect where you can apply Industry 4.0, specifically IoT for maintenance reduction. The next one is BAE Systems, which is British Aerospace Engineering. And they were able to improve their training efficiency by 30 to 40% more. And that allowed them to reduce the cost to 1/10 of what it used to be using augmented reality training guides. And augmented reality, for those that may not know that, those are the goggles that you will put on your head. And you can actually see either through a screen off to the right, but actually see the product in front of you. So they're like glasses with an extra screen to be able to learn how to conduct maintenance and operation with the instructions right there. In virtual reality, they can do very similar kinds of things to that as well. So that helped their workforce become more productive and more efficient. And lastly was the processes. A food and beverage company, which was not named, was able to increase its productivity by 5 to 8% by doing what they call real-time overall equipment efficiency and operational intelligence. So by putting sensors on the equipment, they're able to determine how effectively they're operating and being able to make adjustments as they go, because sometimes the equipments do fall out of calibration. And they were able to improve their productivity by 5 to 8%, which are, let's say if you're a major beverage company, let's say like Coca-Cola, 5 to 8% productivity improvements is a huge amount of money, because we all know they make a lot of money in that particular area. All right, so let me look at some non-manufacturing examples. And first we have healthcare. So there is a new focus on trying to create something called Care 4.0, not unlike Industry 4.0. And it's an integrated care paradigm that uses Industry 4.0 capabilities, and it helps patients co-manage and use their healthcare assets for more personalized service. It's allowing them to take more of an active role in how they manage their healthcare, utilizing digital technologies. Some of you may have access to Allegheny Health Network. They have a pretty comprehensive interaction system that you can use to kind of monitor, what kind of medications do I have? When can I make an appointment? It just makes more efficient and actually helps improve on the quality and the outcomes of patients as they are trying to set up and manage their healthcare. Another one for education. And it's not just solely with the U.S. Department of Defense, but it can be applied across the board, whether it's high school or grade school, middle school, or even the university level. But the U.S. Department of Defense uses a program called SkillBridge, and they've just rolled out Industry 4.0 Academy, and it's a relevant skills training for service members to increase civilian job placements for those service members that are looking to exit the military. So up to 180 days before they exit, they actually go through this training, which is really kind of neat. And they can learn and augment their skill sets that they've learned through the military with what business is looking for. And they match and they pair these service members up with specific businesses, and so that they can apply for jobs and not have to go out and look for jobs for months on end. And in some cases, somebody managed to land a job within 30 days. And they use this SkillBridge system to do that. So that's a really great example. And lastly, for example, you've got retail. So you have American Eagle. They were able to increase their revenue by upwards of 28% just by using digital channels for sales and marketing. And the data analytics was really helpful to help them adapt to the changing fashion preferences. And that really enabled them to be able to use more of this virtual approach and what we would call ordering online, and may save them the opportunity to maybe close down some stores, which is not great for the employees, but allows them to lower their overhead so they can be more effective. So those are examples from a non-manufacturing approach on how Industry 4.0 technologies are being used. So I want to introduce you to a scenario, and this will lead us into our next poll. But before I do, let me kind of explain it. This is a manufacturing-oriented scenario, but you could do one just as easily for non-manufacturing. But I'm going to look at the manufacturing. So you have a small tool and die shop, and their annual revenue is $60,000 a year. And again, it's a scenario. This is a fictional example, but it sort of explains the power of Industry 4.0 from a standpoint of thinking through why you want to do this and what the key value drivers are. So they would like to increase their revenue by 12%, let's say, from $600,000 a year to $675,000 a year. But their operational systems, which is a paper-based system, so they're still doing things on blueprints and they're still keeping things maybe on ledger pads, are preventing them from increasing their productivity. So in order to increase their revenue, they have several options. Option A would be to acquire a new machining center, right? So that would be one way where they could maybe double their output. Option B could be to integrate a new operating system. And an operating system might be something that ties all their equipment together to monitor where they may actually be underperforming on a piece of equipment. So its output may be only at 30 or 40%. They could try to equalize it. And option C could be simple digital upgrades, such as applying things like teamwork software or project management software. And those will be able to help them maybe try to make more efficient how they can manage their resources and manage jobs coming in and manage jobs coming out. So I want to go to the next poll break.
All right, so based on the scenario that Steve just went over, you have some options. So we want to hear from you what you think that small tool and die shop should do. Should they look at option A, option B, or option C? So we're getting some votes to come in. Again, just another reminder for that Q&A. So if you have some questions that you're thinking of, feel free to submit those via that Q&A button at the bottom of your screens. We'll give it about 15 more seconds. Looks like we definitely have a clear winner on this one, Steve. You'll be excited to see the results.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing the bottom one. Oh, there it is. Got it.
All right, so I'm going to end polling. We'll share the results. We have a clear winner on this one, although I shouldn't say winner because you'll talk about why that is.
Sure. No, great answers. And actually, I am very impressed with the audience. Sometimes going after the small, low-hanging fruit Not sometimes, many times. That's the best way to go. So digital upgrades, something as simple as integrating a project management tool or a way for you to kind of keep track of your jobs, either through not only MS Teams, but let's say Excel or something as simple as that, can actually net a positive increase. It won't necessarily increase your volume by a significant amount, and I'll explain that here in a minute. I don't see anything for the new machining center, which in some respects I'm not surprised, but every so often you get somebody that, or some organization feels that's important. And we've got a couple for new operating systems, which is actually another option that can be very viable for what you're striving to do. So that's very, very, very impressive results. Thank you. So any Q&A?
Yep, you're good to move forward.
Okay. So let's look at the results. So option A, we talked about that. That had you purchasing a new machine center so that you could increase your revenue by 12%. A new machining center may cost you $250,000. Now, it could be a little bit less than that if it's used, or it could be much more than that if it's not. And not to mention hiring a new employee at a cost of $60,000 a year to achieve a 12% revenue increase. And that revenue increase may not occur in that first year, but maybe you start to see it in year 2 or year 3. You'll notice, though, you've got a relatively good return on investment at 172% roughly. And annualized, that's 10%. That's over 10 years. So it's not bad at all. Option B has you acquiring a new operating system. That could be a manufacturing execution system, which are things that could be set up on these handheld tablets as you walk around and check out the performance of your equipment. A new operating system like this can cost about $125,000. Some can be less, but it has installation and service costs, and it might have other aspects of such as renewing a license every year or so. This might, let's say, net you a 10% revenue increase. You will not be able to necessarily double or increase your output by 12%, but you still may get 10% revenue increase. But that still gives you a really nice ROI of 265% roughly over time, and annualized at 13%. Option C is gradually invest in simple step improvements. And that's using, let's say, open source digital operation tools such as MS Teams or Excel. So by investing in a service that can help the business gradually shift over to newer digital-based tools, your organization is able to increase productivity and revenue by 8% at an investment of only $50,000. And so the revenue increases to, let's say, $6,500 a year with a profit of $10,000 in year 1 after investing in that first step approach. And again, this is a scenario, but you'll notice the ROI for that is 1,410% with a very strong annualized ROI. What I want to stress here, there's no wrong answer here. Each approach nets a positive ROI, but thinking through the risks and addressing simpler solutions, you can gain an equal to or greater ROI. You really want to think through what it is we want to do, what the risks and the simpler solutions are, to really focus on the value drivers we're looking for. So that's really important. So the options like option A and option B could be pursued later based on a thoughtful rollout of a strategy. And a strategy is going to play a big role in how you would implement Industry 4.0. And this is something that Nextovation can help you with. And we can walk you through this process to help you assess what might be best for your organization. So you can see that the potential return on investment for Industry 4.0 is relatively strong. I'd like to go back to the Industry 4.0 wheel and then also look at the triangle of value, as we would call it, and those drivers. And I want to show you how each technology on that wheel would provide value to the key value drivers you can see. Now, keep in mind, this is not one technology per one value driver is what you work with. You can actually work with multiple. So for example, if we look at quality, you may have multiple technologies working together in tandem, creating like a recipe for you that fits your quality requirements in a way that can help you improve upon quality. So for instance, healthcare can use advanced materials or material coatings to minimize contamination when they are working with a patient. And that, along with data analytics and tracking, to monitor the testing can be done using chip technology for blood tests or even COVID testing, for example. Or if they're using catheters, they can track the cleanliness of catheters. And all that can be done through data analytics, along with the material lots that are created with this new material or coating, as well as a cybersecurity program to protect the information common within healthcare. So that's an example. Another one would be supply and demand matching. So you can see here, you could have for, let's say, school districts and kids working online. A lot of the schools now obviously are having to work online using cloud computing and edge computing with the internet, along with cybersecurity, to protect access to the students, as well as to protect the teachers' interaction with the materials that they're sharing. So teachers and students can work virtually and they can store information safely and protect it. And that's really been driven by the whole COVID reality that we're dealing with now. But you look that it's not just one technology, it's multiple. You could probably add on to that as well. Not just 3, it could be more. And then lastly, as an example, you could look at time to market. So you can you could see that digital simulation or digital twinning can help designers and engineers make data-driven decisions more effectively and quickly. They can design more efficiently. They can use augmented reality or virtual reality to be able to see how these products or even services can be used within a simulated space. And finally, they can use additive manufacturing, what we call 3D printing, to help evaluate prototypes without having to go and produce tooling to then injection mold or machine out steel, which can take months or weeks, if you will. That way they can do things quickly to be able to get products on the market faster. So those are very important aspects, and you could have other examples as well for some of the others that can help you look at, okay, what are the kinds of tools I would like to use out of the Industry 4.0 wheel that could help me? So before you start down the path of implementing Industry 4.0, and I'd said this at the beginning, it's not a question of what, when, how, and who, and those are important. It's a matter of why. You really want to ask yourself that question. Why am I pursuing this? Why do I want to pursue change? So as a business leader or a leader in your organization, you really want to ask that question first. You want to have a precise understanding of what the Industry 4.0 playing field is and how that would relate to your specific organizational or operational challenges to maybe transform your enterprise or transform your organization. So what kind of value and performance drivers do you need to deliver? Those are very important. You know, knowing that will help you in differentiating you from your competitors. So that gets into the what. You know, what are the things that we need to do to decide and prioritize on Industry 4.0 technology in the present and in the future? You have to think forward. The when would be, when will these I4.0 efforts unfold within a smart sequence of ongoing change? So what I mean by that is, take this as a step change. Look at this from the standpoint of, let's take a step at a time, maybe pilot a few things and work our way through it, deciding what to do first, what to do second, what to do third, and beyond will optimize your new capabilities, maximize your return on investment. The how will be how you implement and govern the process and track the changes strategically to maximize how your organization is performing and how you're capturing value. So an informed governance structure, if you will, an approach will help you do a better job of tracking your value methodologically, and that'll be very critical to success. And that gets back to the key process indicators or key performance indicators that allow you to say, hey, we're hitting here, but we're a little short here. Maybe we need to emphasize more on that. And the who is, who do you need to include in your I4.0 future to deliver those highly specialized cross-functional skills that will maximize your performance. The talent change is no longer an HR issue, but an overarching business and organizational issue and challenge for the leaders of the organization or the C-suite. So the things you need to think about is why, what, when, how, and who. But focus on the why first and figure out why you would want to implement Industry 4.0 into your business or your organization or your life. So let's go to the next poll.
So this last poll question that we have for you today, we want you to think about your business, your organization, or even just you personally, your life, and think about how you would want to implement that, those types of Industry 4.0 things into your lives or your organization. So go ahead and read through those. There's quite a bit of them, so we'll take an extra minute or so for this one before we close out the results. And again, just another plug for that Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to input those with the Q&A. And for those of you watching the recording, continue thinking about these poll questions and how you would want to implement Industry 4.0 within your organization or for you personally. So we're getting the results to start trickling in. And we'll give it another 15 seconds or so before we share the results. All right, so we're going to end the polling. There you go.
Okay. So it looks like improved service, better customer relations, improved trust comes out highest at 50%. That's not surprising. I think our businesses or our organization or what we do lives and dies with our customers. So we have to make sure that that is improved. There were 3 that were more in that 36%, improve on quality, that's better performance, maybe reduced inspection time or reduced cost, and increased flexibility, accommodate change and uncertainty. I think that's a very important one. I would not be surprised if all you were feeling a little bit uncomfortable with the ambiguity and the uncertainty of our future here. But I think there's opportunities here for us that we can reinvent how we do things and take advantage of just being smart, but also bold in how we approach Industry 4.0. And increase flexibility and increase productivity. Those are big ones. Producing more, maybe more efficient manufacture. The others coming in at, say, 4 is competitiveness. Surprised that's not higher, but that's fine. And again, we have downtime. Now that's an important one. A lot of companies that have reduced downtime take a hit. And then preparing future-ready students, strengthening resume, improved personnel skills and talent. Those got 2 votes out of 14. Thought those would be a little higher, but that's okay. I mean, this is a good, even, what I would call a good pragmatic approach to the poll results. Any questions?
Yep, you're good to move forward.
All right. So what I'd like to do is just give you a quick walkthrough on how to get started. This would be very important as far as, what do I do first? And how can I get my work done and get this thing kicked off? So first, you want to do what is called a status quo assessment. That is to determine the level of digital maturity across the company and your value stream, your customers, what are they looking for? So you would conduct a digital maybe capabilities assessment by a value driver. So those are the ones that we previously mentioned in that wheel, those 8 value drivers. And you look at maybe the near-term low-hanging fruit opportunities that might be best as you can achieve wins early. I think that's very important. So do a status quo assessment on where you may have gaps, where you may have strengths. 2 would be to identify improvement ideas. So that could be capturing bottom-up improvement ideas across the near term, midterm, and maybe blue sky opportunities that could come from the line staff or people working on the shop floor, as well as those that come from the top down. So you want to work with your whole staff, from line operators, as I mentioned, maybe to procurement, to sales, to engineering, to retail. They would know the issues and challenges, and then prioritize those ideas based on your corporate strategy. Stay true to who you are and as an organization, and don't try to make wholesale changes right out of the gate. All right, so you've identified ideas. 3rd, you would estimate the value impact. What is the size of this opportunity for each future state improvement? In other words, if we pursue two of these things and we aggregate them together, how do they impact the bottom line? Maybe we look at time reduction and cost savings, or we look at time reduction and inventory. Next, you would begin with a pilot project. So identify 1 to 3 ideas you can pilot to test out your assumptions. Don't try to dive into this whole hog. Be sure that these are near-term projects with reasonable deliverables so that you have measurable goals. I think it's important to recognize that you want to get quick wins early and try not to eat the whole elephant, as we would say. All right. And then you would create a roadmap path forward. So while you're starting on this initial pilot project, you might structure a path forward for the transition into digital and other areas. So this might be a loop, as you can see on the slide, where you might make adjustments to some of your pilot projects. Some may work out well, some may not be working out well. So maybe you stop those and maybe initiate new ones. And then last but not least, you want to embrace the digital change. So that relies heavily on starting off modestly and getting quick wins, but starting to culturally involve the organization, explain to them the value purposes behind all this, and then show proof that this actually will work. I think it's really key to do that. So a gentleman, and you can see the quote on the right, Bob Murphy, who's the Senior VP of Operations at USA-based Rockwell Automation, said that very well, that implementing I 4.0 transformation with the end in mind is your destination. It's the only way to succeed. So you have to be intentional about it, and you want to have things intelligently architected and strategically laid out in a roadmap. So that will deliver the required results that you can scale. So everything is built upon a strategy. So I think that's very important. So final thoughts. Be bold and be strategic. I think the time for experimentation is over. I think you need to look and view the road ahead as a pressing business issue and exercise leadership that maybe builds on a holistic strategy. Everyone is moving so much faster now that we're living in this COVID reality. So think about it from that way. As I mentioned before, eat the elephant one bite at a time. Focus on your efforts on a limited number of applications to start and build confidence. I think if you try to take on more than you can chew, you're really going to run into a lot of problems. Next, pursue value and performance first, not technology. The technology will be driven out of what you're trying to do from a value and performance objective. So for a holistic system, you want to look at it such that, okay, we want to achieve this value goal and this performance objective. Therefore, maybe these technologies would fit based on what they offer. So you cannot buy your way into I 4.0 maturity. It doesn't work, and there's too many stories of how that has failed. Sustainable transformation requires a precise and sequenced roadmap. So before you start this journey, ask, why are we pursuing this? Lay the foundation, lay the IT foundations. So don't be afraid of workarounds. Start laying the IT foundations for a more robust solution tomorrow. In other words, if you have to work around existing systems, then do so. Sometimes an existing system can be a hindrance, but you want to get your IT folks involved in this at the very beginning. So try to see how you can then create or adapt or adopt a system that will allow you to be able to pursue this. Build relationships with third-party suppliers. This is very important, especially in light of COVID. The whole supply chain of the world, let alone the United States, has been totally disrupted by COVID. So relying on a second-party supplier or two and having them meet your needs and not thinking about having a broader portfolio of suppliers can actually be very bad. So you want to have a portfolio of those technology suppliers because they'll be invaluable as they will provide help and guidance on many aspects of how you're evaluating Industry 4.0, the installation, the operation, and the troubleshooting. And then build a strong and agile team. Again, this gets at the talent bit. A strong internal team with an agile mindset will be able to navigate the fast-paced changes, both technologically and competitively. So you're looking for folks that know how to handle ambiguity or know how to handle change well, that are not unflappable, that are also, have some of the skill sets, but also more the interrelational skill sets and be able to organize and work within the culture of your company. So those are very important. Recognize today's opportunities, the real threats to survival, those things that are going to be immediately addressed. So rethink your key performance indicators in ways that will redefine how you measure future success. And that can lead into the last one, which is experimenting with new business models. Always look at how you can reinvent your business. If you don't, someone else will. And that's just unfortunately the reality of life. So that gives you an idea of what some of the ROI can be for Industry 4.0. I hope that I was able to cover the things from a manufacturing side, as well as from a non-manufacturing side with some simple examples and a step-by-step approach on how you can roll this out. I want you to know that Nextovation is here to help you on your journey, and that we'd be more than willing to talk with you to see how we might be able to work with you and help you try to make sense of this whole Industry 4.0 reality that we're dealing with. I want to thank you for your time today. We can provide things like status quo assessment or an audit, maybe what the lay of the land is, where you should stand, facilitated improvement workshops, maybe working with you to kind of help guide your team, training classes and courses, which is something that we're going to be rolling out here very shortly, as well as access to subject matter experts and consultation. We're building a library of various folks locally that might be able to help you out. So I want to thank you for your time today. And I wanted to see if you had any questions before we go.
So we don't have any questions, but we do have a comment of that you were very informative. So they are thanking you for your presentation. I also do want to remind people, you know, we do have more information sessions coming up. So Steve's sharing those.
That slide.
Steve's sharing those right now. That's okay. And so our next one will be on August 11th, and we'll be talking about data and the Internet of Things. This is a really big kind of hot topic within Industry 4.0. We also have a session on virtual communication and collaboration, and then one on data visualization. And this is data visualization for anyone. So you get a bunch of data. How do you show it or share it with people? That's an easy to understand way. So we have some really great upcoming webinars as part of this series, and you can just go to our website at nextovation.org/events. That's where you'll get the registration information for the next sessions if you haven't already registered for those. And we're also creating a recording library of all of these. So today's session will be up there on the Nextovation website in the video library on nextovation.org. So we have a few more thank yous. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds or so to let people type in some questions if they do have it. But we appreciate the thanks. I'm sure you do too, Steve.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to what Corinne said there. In addition to the next third, fourth, and fifth session, we are planning an additional 5 more sessions throughout the course of the fall. And each one will be targeted at a specific topic, which I think will be very relevant for what everyone is striving to achieve and striving to learn about.
Okay. All right. So it doesn't look like there's any other questions coming in, but thank you, Steve, for today and the information. And we look forward to seeing everybody on August 11th.
Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.